He sewed 2 loops on the end of the belt, tucked the roller in his pants, and crawled through the opening in his cell wall. This time, when Bucklew reached the air vent in the ceiling, he flipped the canvas belt over several bars and slipped the steel roller through the loops. He put one leg through and shifted his weight on the roller. It held. Now he could cut through the ceiling bars. Bucklew decided to only cut for 30 minutes each night in case guards happened by his cell during a surprise check. Each morning, he marked his progress on a calendar in his wall. I kept a running total on the calendar in plain sight. I knew the guards wouldn't figure it out. Bucklew calculated that it would take him 1 week to cut through the bars. But when he finished, he discovered that there was another row of bars inside the air vent itself that he would have to cut, and these were much thicker than the first row. But there was another problem. Even after he cut the bars, Bucklew was going to be too big to get through the air vent. He would have to lose even more weight. For more than a month, Bucklew had only been eating sardines, crackers, and a half orange. Now he cut his diet to the half orange and 4 crackers per day. Bucklew figured he could cut through the second set of bars by August 10th, 1976, a good night for an escape because there was no moon. By August 8th, he had sawed through 1 bar and halfway through the next. He was right on schedule. All he needed was 2 more days, but on August 9th, Hurricane Bell hit Trenton, knocking out the spotlights in the prison yard. Bucklew decided to take advantage of the hurricane and leave early. He put a papier-mâché face part way under the covers on his bunk, bunched them up to simulate a body beneath him, and then slid the toilet out of the way. Just as he was about to crawl out of his cell, Bucklew stopped, went over to the calendar on his wall, and wrote, "Goodbye." He slipped into the chamber, climbed the pipe, and made his way to the air vent and began sawing the final bar. Rain pelted against the vent, and wind made its lovers chatter like hands clapping. Bucklew cut for several minutes and then began pushing against the bar, trying to break it, but it refused to budge. He sawed some more and was able to bend the bar back this time, but it still wouldn't crack. He tried to push himself through the opening, but he was too big. He began pulling down on the bar with all his weight and strength, and it broke suddenly, causing Bucklew to fall. Luckily, his leg caught the canvas belt on his trapeze, leaving him hanging upside down like a circus performer. Bucklew swung himself upright and began crawling into the air vent. His head passed through without difficulty, but his shoulders and chest were too big for the opening. "I had to go," he recalled. It was too late to turn back. With a great push, he forced his chest through the vent, scraping the skin, and within minutes, he was on the slate roof in the rain. He removed his shoes for better traction and proceeded slowly to the edge, where he used his typewriter ribbon rope, woven of 38 ribbons, each 50 feet long, to lower himself to the prison yard. Bucklew assumed correctly that the guards had organized foot patrols to compensate for the blacked out spotlight. He slipped a shank from his pants. "I would have killed anyone who tried to stop me," he said, "and I'm certain they would have killed me just as quickly." Bucklew raced across the yard to the death house, so called because it was where convicts were executed. It was a 1-story structure built close to the stone wall that circled the prison. Once he climbed onto the death house roof, there would only be a 7-foot wall between him and freedom, but there was still an obstacle in his way. A guard tower loomed directly over the death house. When Bucklew reached the top of the prison wall, he would be on the same eye level as the guard inside the tower. The guard would have to be blind not to see him. "I figured I had a 50-50 chance of killing the guy first," Bucklew said. "I figured this guy was trained to reach for his shotgun, and if he did that, he'd be mine because I could crash into the tower and grab the gun as he was swinging it around. But if this hack was smart enough to pull out a pistol, he'd kill me first." As Bucklew climbed onto the death house roof and started up the outer wall, he suddenly realized that it was raining so hard that he couldn't see the tower guard. He couldn't even tell if a guard was in the tower. I snapped. I couldn't see him. He couldn't see me. Bucklew jumped down from the wall and ran as fast as he could across the wet grass outside the penitentiary. It was several hours before anyone knew he had escaped, and he wasn't recaptured for a full year. "I swear to Christ, I never felt like I did when I hit that ground," Bucklew said, as he added a few more onions to his spaghetti sauce in the officer's mess. Give me a motorcycle and I will go as fast as it can possibly go. I've flown airplanes that way too. I like the feeling and sensation of speed. I like the feeling of making it with a woman who is right on the same point with you. So you come together. And there is no feeling like having a big pile of money or listening to a hard rock band after doing 2 or 3 tabs of some good acid. But none of those feelings, or even all of them combined, can touch the feeling of real live freedom. It's something you only understand when you have it taken and suddenly you reclaim it. I felt like I suddenly got my whole life back. Buckley's escape was so ingenious that even the prison officials in Trenton, whom he embarrassed, paid him a certain amount of grudging respect. They also wondered what Buckley could have accomplished had he chosen to be a law-abiding. Buckley appeared to be a natural leader, the judge wrote, yet he had chosen to squander his abilities. Buckley didn't see it that way. I don't respect the law, he explained, because laws are for people who are weak and need them. If someone comes into my house and takes something, I'm not going to call a cop. I'm going to deal with it. And if I'm not man enough to get it back, then that guy has the right to take whatever he wants because I don't really deserve to own it. That's how society should be. If justice needs to be applied, I will apply it. And the reason that I have a right to apply it is because I have the power to do it. Having the power gives me permission. Bucklaw paused and then said, when I was little, I was taught to question authority. And I always have. I'm not about to accept what you tell me unless I want to. When you're a kid, everyone thinks that's great. But when you're grown up, you were supposed to become a sheep and follow blindly. Now, if a psychologist was sitting here, he'd tell you I'm immature and my development isn't right. He'd say I grasped something as a child and never risen above it. Well, excuse me, but as a child I was taught not to be a stool pigeon. Don't tattletale on other kids. I was taught if someone hits you, you hit them back. And if they even think about hitting you again, you make them never want to see you again. That is what John Wayne always did, and everyone in the country thought John Wayne was right. So you tell me what changed. Who switched the rules? When did these things I was taught as a kid suddenly become the wrong thing to do? I might die in prison, but I'm not going to become an upstanding member of your society. Because in order to do that, I would have to become a stool pigeon and always run to the cops, a coward afraid to settle my own problems without hiring a lawyer, and a shitbag who blindly follows every goofy guy who gets elected to the White House. 6 other inmates joined Buckley at this Sunday spaghetti dinner. The conversation centered on guards and how much they hated them. As I listened, I realized that it was not much different from the conversations that I had heard among guards at Benny's. Only the guards had talked about how loathsome the convicts were. You gotta understand, most of these hacks were the guys in high school who everyone picked on. You know, the buttheads who got a jock put on their head in gym class, one inmate explained. That's why they're hacks, because they are still trying to prove their manhood, and they think by coming in here and acting tough, they are real men. Most would shit if you got in their face. Someone mentioned that Carl Boyles had been fired as the hospital gardener, and just as quickly an inmate made a crack about Miss Boyles, but no one laughed and the room was quiet for several seconds. It wasn't smart to talk about another convict behind his back, especially Boyles. By 3 o'clock, everyone except Buckley had gone into the auditorium to watch a rock concert taped the night before off MTV. When I was little, maybe 4 or 5, Buckley said as he cleaned the tables, I would wait at the door for Pops to come home. I had my cowboy hat on, my boots on, and my gun on. And he'd come in and I'd give him a gun, and this guy would say, draw. Now, obviously, a 25 or 26-year-old man is going to beat this 5-year-old kid to the draw. But what amazed me was that every day, every single day, when he beat me to the draw, he made me put my hands up and turned around and faced the wall. Then he would shoot me in the back. Every single fucking day we do this. And one day, I reared up on him and I said, what's the sense of facing the wall? You were going to shoot me anyway. And he says, well, maybe today I won't. So I turned around and he shot me in the back and did that every day after that. Now, once he did not shoot me, I thought about it a long time, Buckley said, and finally I decided there was a message there. When he came home from work, I shouldn't have been waiting for him. I should have been hiding behind the door or behind the couch. I should have shot him as soon as he came in. Fuck giving him a gun and fuck giving him a chance. You see, I think Pops was trying to teach me something. In life, you can play by someone else's rules or you can play by your own. If you played by someone else's rules, you were going to get fucked every time because they are designed for them, not you. Yeah, that's what old Pops was saying. And it may have sounded like a stupid point, but I think he was right.